Okay, in this video I'm going to explain how we find the mean, median, mode and range for different data sets. Okay, so make sure you understand what each of those four things mean. Let's start with data set A. To find the mean, we really just need to use our calculator. Alright, so the mean is another word for average. So to find the average of a set of scores, you just need to add those scores up and divide by the number of scores that there are. So the mean will be, so get your calculators out and add up those scores. Okay, so those scores add up to 67 and divide that by the number of scores that there are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11 scores. Alright, so 67 divided by 11 and we get 6.09. If I round that to one decimal place, 6.1 is my mean. Alright, so just remember that to find mean, it's the total of all scores divided by the number of scores. Okay, moving on to median. So the median is the middle number. So to find the median, you need to actually arrange these numbers in order, because otherwise the middle doesn't make any sense. So rewrite those numbers from smallest to largest. Okay, so we've rewritten those scores. Now you need to know how many scores there are. So we counted before and there was 11 scores. So what we need to do is find the middle. Now if there's an odd number of scores like 11, that's handy because we can actually find a middle number. So if we count in from either end, count in this way and count in this way. If you count in 5, then you'll find that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 on either side gives us 6 in the middle. Alright, so our median is therefore 6. If we happen to have an even number of scores, so let's just imagine that there was another score here of 10, then what would happen is we've now got 12 scores, so we would group the first 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the second 6. So the median would be the middle of these two scores. Now, in this case, they're both 6, so it would still be 6. If it was two different numbers, then you would find halfway between those two numbers. Alright, continuing on. So the mode is the next one we need to find. So the mode means the most common, or the one that occurs the most. And if you look at your data here, 6 occurs 3 times, so your mode is 6. And finally we have range. Range is the highest minus the lowest. So the highest score is 9, the lowest score is 4, so my range is 5. Alright, so there's our 4 pieces of information. Moving on to set B. Set B is set out as a stem and leaf plot, but the same ideas work. Alright, so if we're finding the mean, we need to add up all of the values in that plot. So remembering that if I've got a stem of 11 and a leaf of 0, that score there is actually 110. My second score is 111, third score is 123, and so on. So when you're putting those into your calculator, just remember to put in all 3 digits as the number. Alright, so let's do that. Okay, so after putting all of those into my calculator, I get a total of 2,719. So we've got to divide that by the number of scores. So just counting how many leaves there are, that would give us the number of scores. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 20 scores. So my mean, if I divide that by 20, is 135.95. Okay, and always think, does that make sense? Is that around the middle of those groups, of that group of data? Okay, and it is. Alright, moving on to median. Remembering that median is the middle of the data. Now this has been put in order for us, so it makes life a little bit easier. Okay, so remembering that we've got 20 scores, so it's an even number of scores. So in our first half of the numbers, if we were to write them out, we would have 10 scores in our first group, and we would have 10 scores in our second group. So what I'm going to do is start from my lowest number and count up to 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that means everything from 110 up to 138 is in my lower half. Everything from 139 up to 152 is in my top half. And my mean is the number in the middle of those two halves. So what number would be in the middle here? Now, you've got to find halfway between 8 and 9. Halfway between 8 and 9 is 8.5. So my median, remembering that I've got a stem here, my median is 138.5. Alright, on to the mode. The mode is usually the quickest one to find. Just looking for the one that occurs the most common or the most frequent number of times. So to me it looks like the 111 in the 14s row is the most common. So what number is that? That's 141. Okay, and finally we're going to do range. Range is your highest number, 152, minus your lowest number, which is 110. And so my range is 42. Alright, moving on to a frequency table. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Mean, median, mode, and range. Starting with mean. Now, a frequency table is a little bit different. Let's just go over what a frequency table shows us. So this set of data, what this means is that a score of 5 occurred 4 times. So if I was to write out all this data, then I would have 5, 5, 5, 5. And then the score of 6 occurred 6 times, so that would be followed by 6 sixes. Then a score of 7 occurred 3 times, and so on. Now there is a quick way to work out the total of all of these scores. So before I work out the mean, I'm just going to add an extra column called, sometimes you call the score an X. So this column is called F times X. So what we do is we times the score by the frequency. Now the score by the frequency here is 5 times 4 is 20. So what that means is, because I had 4 scores of 5, if I was to add those up, I would get a total of 20. The next 6 scores are all 6s, so those would total 36. The next 3 scores are 7s, so that would total 21. The next 2 scores are 8, that would total 16. And the next 5 scores are 9, so that would total 45. Alright, so my total for this FX column, I have to add those numbers up. So let's just quickly do that. So that gives me a total of 138. So for mean, total of all my scores is 138. I also need the number of scores. So the number of scores is going to be the total of my frequency column, because remember that's how many scores there are. So if I add up my frequency column here, I've got 4 plus 6 is 10, 13, 15, 20. So I've got 20 scores. So to find mean, 138 divided by 20, and I get 6.9. Remember, think about whether that makes sense. An average of 6.9, so fairly close to 7, that looks like it's about the middle, so that makes sense. Okay, median. So median, now, it's quite tedious if I sit there and write out all of these 20 scores. So the way to do a median on a frequency table is remembering that there's 20 scores. So you need to find, you would split it into 2 groups of 10. That would be your first group, that would be your second group. So what you need to do is find the score that is, or the value that is between the lower half and the upper half. So we've got here, if we look at our frequency column, that's our first 10 scores. That's our second 10 scores. So our median is in between these two. Alright? Alright, so our median, therefore, our scores are the ones in this score column. So our median is between 6 and 7. So median between 6 and 7 means a median of 6.5. Alright, mode. Again, mode is the most common. So looking at my frequency, because frequency tells me how many times something occurs, the most frequent score there is 6. So just don't be confused by the score and the frequency being the same. Alright, we're looking for the highest frequency and therefore the score that has that frequency, which is 6. And finally, the range. The highest score was 9, the lowest score was 5. So remember, your range, you're looking at the highest score minus the lowest score. And that gives me a value of 4. Alright, so that's how we find the mean, median, mode, and range for different data sets. So your turn to have a go at those and then try the exercises in 10.04.